2, 1. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, if the previous speaker concedes that the poorest of the poor need access to education and they're willing to support that alternative, the abstraction and inability to be able to answer who deserves what and how do we proportionally give access to vacancy is exactly where the model falls apart. Because these vacancies are limited in number, but I'm pretty sure the vast amount of students and people, whether from the urban area or the rural area, from near or far, all want an access to that opportunity. The point in which you leave it to the subjectivity of the state or the subjectivity of the admissions office is exactly where you allow the Indian people to start thinking that the government or the school has preferential treatment. And that's exactly what we see in status quo, where in certain areas, for instance, with a particular economic advantage or certain areas which are favored to be better or have more opportunity at the expense of other areas which they deem to be poor, they deem to be fucking sketchy, is exactly where those very desolate people who they claim to want to be able to help don't get a particular slot. That is why this particular model of being able to ascribe a definition proportional to a particular population guarantees a fairer and more equitable chance to be able to be represented. Specifically at the point in which you have a particular slot, whether that be 1 slot, 2, 3, 4, 5, proportional to the number of vacancies, a capacity to be able to get there. But you might ask, Joseph, there are so many territories, so many states. What if we have a limited number of vacancies? When you have like 10, right? Then we're gonna do it out on a rolling needs basis, meaning those who are like farther are gonna get prioritized, but don't worry, we're gonna be able to like go through all of that particular thing so that in the long run, let's say after 1 to 3 years, at least everyone is able to have at least one representative. What is my extension? My extension is on the role of the state and why this should be mandated, and I'm going to talk about and answer a fundamental question. Why do we have state universities and colleges? What are unis for? And how do these better prop up particular individuals, especially those who need it the most, a chance to be able to succeed at later points in life? But before I get there, a couple of responses coming from the previous speaker. The LO talked about how it's very competitive in these urban areas, and we think that national public universities are very hard to get into. On both sides, you have to be able to compete, but on our side, we give those who can compete and can compete well a chance. Why? And this is the nuance to proximity. There are some people from farther areas who can't afford to travel or can't afford to live in a city center to be able to go about that whole admissions process, or maybe even stay there for 1 semester because they're on probationary and they're not sure of being able to get in. This is because urban areas naturally have a higher cost of living. So on our side, instead of them having to like go get an OJT over there and have to get into debt or have to like figure out how to make things ends meet, we're able to allow them a chance to be able to prove themselves, of which my previous speaker already said has a process. Therefore, if you can compete, we allow you and show you a chance in the door, because absent this particular narrative or this particular policy, you're not guaranteed a chance. Meaning, you might be capable, you might be just as capable, but the line of people who they prefer from that particular locale is in the hundreds or thousands. Good luck getting on the wait list, you might as well just pray. The next thing they mention is these particular ideas of how it's particularly bad, for instance, given that, if we want to fill the quota, it'll be tokenistic for filling the quota. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd rather fill a vacancy than not fill it at all, because on their side, the question becomes, who are you gonna give that slot to? And if the answer the previous speaker gave is a general poor individual, depending on who they think is able, that becomes just too arbitrary, and we think it should be done on a rotational needs basis, so it's just a bit more equitable. Now, how are we able to get more funding and be able to get more capital on our side of the house, which actually increases the quality of life for students and maybe even allows these particular universities and colleges within the state to be able to expand, therefore having more space for students in general, and potentially more vacancies, given that if you have bigger space, there's a chance that you'll have more space. Number one, we think that it's exactly at the point in which the state steps in to be able to make sure that the very people that they want to protect have a chance to be able to get a job. Because a job is not just a job. A job is a ticket to be able to get access to an opportunity, and we think that the reality of the situation, whether you're in Asia, whether you're in the US or in India, is that particularly so in these particular city centers, that is where you have a concentration of wealth and opportunity. Whether we're talking about Mumbai, Chennai, or Hyderabad, that's exactly where you have centralized business districts, banks, finance and IT hubs and BPOs to be able to increase the chance for these individuals who otherwise might not have access, a chance to be able to get a good internship, a good management trainee program, a good first job after life in the university. And that uniquely can only happen if they're able to get their foot in the university. Because even if their side says, well, Joseph, maybe they can go to a rural university, they might be able to be good there, they can compete there. Yeah, but the point in which you compare rural university, maybe lower in the ranking, versus like higher ranked university in a city center, even if you are as capable as the other people who graduate, your CV or your resume just won't be prioritized to the fullest extent of what it deserves. And that robs you a chance to be able to get that job later on, which is integral to increasing your quality of life, to be able to set you up and your future family and self for a chance to be able to get a higher purpose. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's uniquely through this particular policy that we engineer it in a way that it's proportional to those people who need it, and it's more equitably done that way, as opposed to the arbitrary nature of what happens on their side of the house. What do you get uniquely coming from open government? You get a clear sense of urgency in terms of how the model works, and you get a clear tie back to why it should be the state to execute this, and how ultimately it increases the quality of life, not just for that student, but the entirety of the student body, wherein the admissions office, fellow peers, and other people are able to benefit from that economic expansion and benefit from that plurality, wherein they otherwise would not be exposed to particular ideas and worldviews. We are very proud to stand on side proposition.